Hi everyone, I'm Memunat Ibrahim. I'm a PhD student at the School of Cybernetics. I'm here to present a talk on what is trust in autonomous vehicles research. Before I begin, I would like to follow the existing protocol in Australia, which is acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this work was conducted and on which I'm presenting this talk, and to pay my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. On this talk, I intend to begin with a brief discussion on the background and motivation of the work, with a focus on autonomous ground vehicles, which I may also refer to as AGVs. Then I'll talk about trust and its role in the adoption of automations. Then I'll highlight some non-exhaustive trust definitions and discuss other relevant concepts that influence trust in autonomous vehicles research, which include trust in human and human relationship, the trustworthiness of automations, trustworthy design factors. Then I'll round this up with some questions based on my observations and findings. Lee defines automations as technology that actively selects data, transforms information, makes decisions, and controls processes. Having said that, I would like to point out observation about automations in our society. The first is automations are basically everywhere, from our mobile phones as Google Assistant or customer service representative to the use of drones in our society for various functions. And soon we'll be having them as drivers or co-drivers on road with autonomous ground vehicles. Secondly, automations used in everyday activities are transitioning from being passive and predictive, like with Google Assistant, where it operates as instructed, to being active and probabilistic when they embed AI technologies like with autonomous vehicles, where depending on their autonomy level, they can automatically take over driving functions without awaiting requests from humans. So their active and probabilistic nature means they can make unanticipated decisions actively and manipulate their environments. I'll discuss this further with a focus on autonomous ground vehicles. Autonomous ground vehicles are autonomous vehicles that operate on ground or on road, like self-driving cars, autonomous shuttles, or trucks. They fall in a category of active automations called the cyber-physical social systems, or CPSS for short. Cyber-physical social systems are systems comprising of interconnected cyber, physical, and social elements. They are used by humans in their social and or natural environments. Cyber-physical social systems like AGVs are increasingly being deployed in societies where they operate, interact with, influence other social, cyber, and physical systems in their environments, including humans. While autonomous ground vehicles offer many opportunities and promises, including improved safety, people may be hesitant to use them due to their active and probabilistic nature. Trust has emerged in literature and research as an important factor that affects the acceptance and adoption of autonomous ground vehicles in the society. So basically, in order for humans to use autonomous ground vehicles and integrate them in their daily lives, they have to trust them. This is true for all automations, not just autonomous ground vehicles. As Lee and C states, trust enables and guides reliance in automations. They define trust as the attitude that an agent, whether automation or another person, will help achieve an individual's goals in a situation characterized by uncertainty and vulnerability. This definition is widely adopted in autonomous vehicles research. I would like to highlight the fact that automation's trust research did not start in the vacuum. It is heavily influenced by trust in human relationship research. So going forward, we will look at how trust is conceptualized in interpersonal relationships and trust attributes. Note that this will be non-exhaustive. So in our daily activities, we engage in trusting relationships, like when walking on road, we may trust drivers across when they signal us to go on by probably waving or just a thumbs up. Even though we know if they decide to change their mind and drive anyway, the result could be fatal, but we engage in the trust relationship. So what is trust and how is it conceptualized by humans? What trust is and the role it plays depend on the context it is being used. However, there are common attributes that are observed in every context where trust exists. So the first is, wherever trust exists, there has to be a relationship, usually between two defined parties. That is, trust exists in relationships. Also, there are usually some vulnerability, uncertainty, and risk involved. In addition to this, trust is non-binary. It is continuous in nature. That is, it has like degree to it. It is not discrete. It is dynamic and changes with time. So trust is usually used to mitigate perceived uncertainty, risk, and enable people to put themselves in vulnerable situations by exhibiting trusting behaviors. Having noted that trust is contextual, here we'll be focusing on trust conceptualizations in humans' relationship that will help us understand trust in automation research. So next, I'll be highlighting two of many trust definitions in humans' relationship that are widely referenced in trust in automations research. So Maya et al. Explored trust in co-working environments from an organizational management perspective. They defined trust as the willingness of a party to be vulnerable to the actions of another party based on the expectation that the person be trusted will perform a particular action important to the truster, irrespective of the ability of the truster to monitor or control the other party. This definition is the most referenced trust definition in trust in automations research. It also reflects the assumption of trust in automations researchers that humans and automations will be in co-working relationships. In addition to this, Friedman and Hendry, in their book Value-Sensitive Design, Shaping Technology with Moral Imagination, presented a definition of trust from human value perspective. They define trust as the expectations that exist between people who can experience goodwill, extend goodwill towards others, feel vulnerable, and experience betrayal. From these definitions, we can observe that trust is often associated with expectations, feelings, and some risk. So, what is a trusting relationship composed of? Hoff and Bashir conducted a literature review on trust and found that trust relationships have three key components. The first is the truster, which is the person who is trusting, and they usually have something at stake and usually have other options. The second is the trustee, which is the agent being trusted. They usually have some incentive to perform the task. And the third is the existence of risk and uncertainty. This is from the probability that the trustee might not perform as expected by the truster. Given all these questions researchers have been asking is, how do we make humans trust in automations? This is where trustworthiness comes in. So trustworthiness is an assessment of whether a person or an agent is worthy of being trusted. This assessment is usually based on some characteristics of the trustee that the truster deemed valuable in that context to determine whether they are trustworthy or not. So an agent is trustworthy if they are deemed deserving of trust or able to be trusted. Maya, in their exploration of trust in co-working human relationships, reviewed trust factors in literature and summarized them in a table, which I converted to this word cloud. So from the word cloud, we can see that trust is associated with some key factors like competence, ability, reliability, openness, etc. They concluded that ability, benevolence, and integrity are the three major factors that influence trustees' trustworthiness in co-working scenario. We need to understand that humans need to trust automations and not the other way around. Hence, automations researchers and engineers are trying to understand what trustworthiness is to humans in order to understand automations' trustworthiness. Understanding this is a pathway for researchers and engineers to model and operationalize trust in automation. So what is trustworthiness of automation and what are the trust factors, in other words? In computing and engineering, trust has been associated with values like safety, security, privacy, performance, etc. But the answer to this question is automation's trustworthiness depends on three factors. These factors is summarized by Hoff and Bashir as the human operator, that is the person who is trusting the automation, then the environment or context of which the automation is being used, then the nature of the automation system itself. That is, trustworthiness of automations is influenced by human-related, task-related, and system-related characteristics. These three factors make up a bigger system that need to be considered holistically in order to be able to understand how to design trustworthy automations. That is, we need to understand what trust is for a particular automation deployed in some defined context from a human or group of humans perspective. So some answers have been given to the question, how do we design trustworthy automations? These answers are summarized by Hoff and Bashir based on their literature review findings on design features that promote trust in automations as enhancing automation appearance and anthropomorphism, with consideration on the potential users' demographics, also simplifying the automation interface for ease of use, polite communication style, providing transparent, timely, and relevant feedback, especially on the system's reliability. And lastly, ensuring the automation's level of control or autonomy is appropriate for the user's preference. Having in mind that these factors may vary for different contexts, depending on the user or stakeholder. So with a focus on autonomous ground vehicles, I explored trust factors in autonomous ground vehicle in both developing and developed nations. To investigate this, I conducted a scoping review by searching literatures on 4 online databases, which include Scopus, ScienceDirect, TRID, and ACM Digital Library, using the highlighted keywords. So I included articles in English conducted in developed and developing nations with autonomous ground vehicles trust factors as the key concepts. Based on the scoping review, in addition to Hoff and Bashir's automation trustworthy design features, I found that for autonomous ground vehicles, familiarity, driving scenario, driving style, safety, prior experience, perception, comfort, social factors, and culture have also been found to contribute to their trustworthiness. As we meet here today as researchers, designers, policymakers, and other roles we may play that directly or indirectly influence automation's design, I would like to leave us with some questions to think about as we go about our activities. I think in order for us to think about social responsibility of algorithms, especially when thinking about automations, we need to reflect on what trust and trustworthiness mean to us and how they are reflected in our works. If anything, I've learned that our assumption about these concepts shape how we investigate them and design solutions towards them. So secondly, reflecting on the relationship between the intent of our works, the language we use in communicating it, and the implication of that using trust in autonomous vehicles as an instance. So using this instance, researchers aim to make humans trust automation as this enable people to use them. So they've been framing their questions as how do we build automations that are trusted by humans? The implication of this is we may end up developing automations that seem trustworthy to humans. Instead, I am here to rephrase the question and ask, how do we design automations that are worthy of being trusted by humans? Given the diverse expertise and backgrounds of the audience, I would like for us all to think about this from our different unique perspectives as we need to investigate this topic from diverse perspectives. And lastly, how do we design for appropriate trust in automations at scale? Thanks to globalization, automations developed in a country may be deployed or repurposed in another country where it is deemed useful. Knowing that building trustworthy automations require understanding the local context it may be deployed in and understanding the perspective of those it may impact, I ask, whose voice and perspective are we amplifying via our works? Whose voice is missing and whose voice should be included? Thank you for listening. I'm currently exploring how to design autonomous vehicles that are worthy of interested in Nigerian context. If you're interested in this, feel free to contact me, or you can suggest people that might be interested in my work. Thank you.